Hey there, welcome back to Reddit Confessions. It's strange how much damage can be done by 8 words. Be back Monday. Girls trip 2 hearts. That's what she texted. Not even a call. Just a bubble on my screen, cheerful, breezy, soaked in pink energy. I stared at it for a full minute before I replied. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I'd already said it out loud to myself 3 days ago. Because I knew it was coming. I knew she'd try it, and I had my reply ready. Enjoy it. Say hi to Mike, from his wife. We're spending the weekend with the lawyers. Send. Airplane mode. Let the panic begin. She didn't know I knew. She didn't know her messages had been forwarded for over 2 weeks. She didn't know Mike's wife had given me access to everything. Photos, texts, hotel bookings. She didn't know I'd spoken to the concierge of the same coastal spa resort. She booked under her maiden name. But she was about to find out. Because I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to let her walk straight into the fire she built. And the best part? Mike's wife was already waiting for her with documents. The thing about betrayal is it never sounds like thunder. It's quiet. It's polite. It sends you a text on a Thursday morning and signs off with a heart emoji. After I sent my reply, I turned off my phone and just sat in the silence. No music. No distractions. Just me and the weight of everything I hadn't wanted to see for over a year. I had spent so much time making excuses for her. The late meetings, the silent weekends, the way she flinched when I touched her shoulder like she forgot who I was. I had told myself she was tired, that the stress of her new wellness consulting gig was to blame. I believed her when she said I was overthinking, that I was too emotional, that I was always looking for something to be upset about. Turns out I was, and I found it. It started with a hotel receipt stuffed into the bottom of her yoga bag. One from a weekend she was supposed to be visiting her sister. That was my first red flag. The second came when I checked our smart doorbell history and saw her leaving the house at 11:47 p.m. 2 Wednesdays in a row, and not coming back until after 3. But I still didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I did something better. I listened. Because sometimes when people lie to you, the best revenge is just letting them keep talking. Lena, that's Mike's wife. She called me the night before the girls' trip. Her voice was calm. Too calm. She asked me, almost casually, if Lila was packing anything special for the weekend. When I said I didn't know, she laughed. Not a real laugh, one of those brittle, hollow ones that people do when they're holding their whole soul together with duct tape. She told me everything. The burner emails. The cash envelopes. The AirTags she secretly planted in her husband's car after he accidentally sent her a selfie with my wife in the background. They'd been renting a cabin 2 hours north. Twice a month. Same place. Same lies. And guess what? They had another reservation. This weekend. But Lena wasn't calling to vent. She wasn't calling to cry. She was calling to plan. By the time Lila left the house with her fake duffel bag and her borrowed perfume, Lena and I had already filed preliminary divorce papers with the same attorney. The same one. The plan was simple. Let them get to the cabin. Let them feel safe. Let them uncork the wine and strip off their masks. Then deliver the message. Not a screaming match. Not a fight. Legal papers. Photographs. Copies of their messages. GPS logs. They were going to have a weekend. Just not the kind they thought. The drive to the cabin felt like crawling through a tunnel with no end. Lena was already on the road in her car. I was behind her by 40 minutes. We didn't drive together. That wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't about unity. This was about separation, surgical, calculated separation. I took the back roads. Not because I was trying to avoid traffic, but because I didn't want to feel like I was doing something ordinary. Nothing about this was ordinary. The man I used to be, the one who stayed home fixing cabinet hinges while his wife networked with holistic life coaches, was gone. The deeper I drove into the forest, the worse the signal got. By the time I passed the 3rd rusted mailbox and the broken private property sign, I had 1 bar left and no GPS. Just an old printout Lena emailed me with the address and a grainy satellite image of the cabin. No neighbors in sight. Just trees, a winding creek, and the illusion of privacy. The perfect hideaway for people who didn't deserve it. I pulled over about a quarter-mile out, turned off my headlights, and walked the rest of the way through the trees. I didn't want them to hear the car. I didn't want them to hear anything, really. I wanted silence to do the talking. From the edge of the tree line, I saw it. The tan Kia with the cracked taillight, parked like a signature in the driveway. Cabin lights were on. Curtains drawn. Music faintly playing. I couldn't hear what song it was, but I could tell it was something soft. Something they probably thought sounded romantic. For some reason, that part almost broke me. Not the betrayal. Not the cheating. But the thought that she had a soundtrack for it. That she put on music for another man, the way she used to for me. Back when we had nothing but an old speaker and 2 cheap glasses of wine between us. I felt something twist in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I stepped back, took a breath, and texted Lena one word. Ready. 2 minutes later, her car pulled up. Calm. Unrushed. She stepped out like she owned the property. Clipboard in hand, folder tucked under her arm. I followed behind her at a distance. No shouting. No threats. Just footsteps on gravel. When we knocked, there was laughter behind the door. Hers. Then the sound of someone walking closer. A shadow passed the blinds. The door opened, and the expression on Lila's face was something I'll remember forever. Because in that moment, she didn't look scared. She looked caught, as if some small part of her had always known this moment would come. She just hoped it wouldn't happen this soon. Mike came up behind her, shirtless and confused. He opened his mouth to say something, but Lena beat him to it. She handed him the envelope. Then she handed one to my wife. And without a single word, we turned and walked back to our cars. We didn't come to argue. We came to end something. The silence after we handed them the papers didn't last long. By the time I reached my car, my phone, which I'd kept on silent, had exploded with notifications. Missed calls, voicemails, frantic texts from Lila. I didn't open any of them. I just sat there, letting the screen glow in the dark like some desperate lighthouse flickering in a storm she didn't expect to sail into. But she had expected it, hadn't she? That look on her face wasn't surprise. It was resignation, and maybe something worse, relief. Like someone finally pulled the curtain back, and she no longer had to keep pretending to be the devoted wife, the girls' weekend liar, the double-life actress. There's something sickening about realizing your spouse was ready for you to find out. That they'd been quietly preparing for the collapse while you were still patching leaks. I didn't go home that night. I booked a motel halfway between the cabin and the city. Not because I couldn't face her, but because I didn't want her to think I needed to. I showered, changed clothes, stared at the cheap ceiling tiles while the old AC rattled like it was haunted, and listened to the messages. The first few were exactly what I expected. Confused, then angry, then begging. She wanted to talk. She said I was overreacting. She said Mike meant nothing, just a midlife crisis mistake, that I was blowing out of proportion. It was like she was speed-running the entire spectrum of guilt and manipulation. But the third message, that one stuck with me. She whispered into the phone, "You were never supposed to find out like this. I just needed something for myself, something that wasn't you." That last part hit harder than I want to admit. Not because it was cruel, but because it was probably honest. It's funny. People always talk about betrayal like it's a knife. Sharp, sudden, violent. But it's not. It's erosion. It's slow. It's quiet. It's years of being seen but not looked at. It's all the dinners she didn't finish, the excuses she made, the bedtime distance that grew from inches to feet without either of us ever saying why. And when I really thought about it, she didn't break us. We broke quietly, long before this. Still, that didn't excuse her. It didn't erase the planning, the lies, the hiding. It didn't explain why she'd sit across from me for months, smiling, while texting another man under the table. And it sure as hell didn't explain the photos Lena sent me the week before. Photos I hadn't even shown Lila yet. Photos that proved this wasn't a one-time escape. It was a second life. One she built while I was still asking her what she wanted for dinner. She came home Monday night, just like she said she would. Except she wasn't walking into the same house, and I wasn't the same man waiting inside it. I didn't text her, didn't warn her, didn't call. I just left the porch light on and sat at the kitchen table, the folder of printed photos laid out like crime scene evidence. Not dramatic, just visible. A quiet message. I know. She opened the door and stopped like she'd walked into the wrong house. Her bag dropped. Her keys hit the floor. For a full 10 seconds, we just stared at each other across that dim, stale kitchen, like strangers trespassing in each other's lives. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice already cracking. I didn't answer. I just tilted my head toward the chair across from me. She sat. I didn't shout, didn't slam my fist. I wasn't here for theater. I was here for her to say it out loud with no way out. I know about the cabin. I know about the hotel in May. I know about the burner phone. I know about the messages. I know about him. Lila stared at the table like it might open up and swallow her. "I'm not asking you to deny it," I said, calmer than I felt. "I'm asking you to explain it." She didn't. She just cried. Not sobbing. Just this slow, leaking kind of cry, the kind people do when they're exhausted and out of stories. But I didn't move. I let the silence sit with her. I wanted her to feel the same kind of weight I'd carried for weeks. The quiet dread. The unanswered questions. The lies she thought were clever. The hope I'd been too stupid to let go of. Finally, she spoke. "It wasn't about him. Not really. It wasn't even about you. It was," I felt, invisible. Like I was someone's background noise. Like I could scream and no one would hear it. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because of the irony. That after all the hiding and cheating and deception, I was the one who was supposed to feel guilty now. "I would have heard you," I said. "But you whispered behind my back instead." And there it was. The truth that killed whatever was left of us. She tried to reach across the table. I pulled my hand back. "It's already done," I said. "We both know that. And the worst part?" She didn't argue. She just nodded. Like she was relieved. Like the affair wasn't the betrayal. The marriage was. I moved out 2 days later. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no suitcases hurled into the street. Just a quiet collection of things that used to mean something, now reduced to items in a box. A toothbrush. A hoodie. A drawer full of receipts for dinners she faked her way through. Felt more like an inventory than a goodbye. She stayed in the house. For now. The lawyer said it was simpler that way, at least until the papers moved through. Honestly, I didn't care. Every room already felt like it belonged to someone else. But the part one wasn't ready for, the part that genuinely caught me off guard, was what she left behind. It was a laptop. Her old work one. The same one I bought her 3 years ago when she started doing freelance coaching sessions. She claimed she'd already wiped it. Told me I could toss it or donate it. But I didn't. Maybe out of curiosity. Maybe out of something pettier. That night, in the crappy apartment I'd rented on short notice, I plugged it in. And just like that, the screen lit up with everything she thought was gone. No password. No encryption. Just folders. Lots of them. There were the obvious ones. Client notes, project outlines, invoices. But tucked inside a bland-looking folder labeled Taxes 2022 was something else entirely. A cache of voice memos. Some were casual notes to herself about meal plans, scheduling. But then came the ones that made my hands go cold. Recordings. Private conversations between her and Mike. Long ones. Personal. Too personal. Some of them were clearly recorded in secret. The tone was hushed, like they were hiding in a hotel bathroom or lying next to each other after pretending to fall asleep. But one file stood out. It was dated 2 months before I discovered the affair. In it, she talked about me, not just in passing, in detail, and not just as her husband, but as a problem. "I don't think he'd ever do anything drastic," she said, voice low and detached. "He's too passive. He won't fight. That's the part that makes this easier. He'll just accept it." I replayed that line 3 times. He'll just accept it. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. She didn't just fall into this. She planned it, counting on me to be too broken to resist. But she miscalculated one thing. I was done being quiet. The next morning, I sent a copy of the recordings to my lawyer. Then I emailed them to myself. Then I sent one to Lena, with no subject line. Just an attachment and a timestamp. She didn't reply in words. Just sent me a thumbs-up emoji. That was enough. Because now we had proof. And Lila had no idea what was coming next. The thing about recording someone who underestimates you is that they never see it coming. For weeks, I'd been the quiet husband. The passive one. The safe bet. The man who wouldn't push back because he didn't know how to swing. That's what she counted on. But now I had leverage. Not revenge. Not drama. Just facts. On record. In her voice. The lawyer called it powerful positioning. Said it wouldn't just help the divorce, it would define it. Because what Lila said in that recording didn't just prove she was cheating. It proved she pre-planned it, manipulated me, and expected to walk away clean. That's not just infidelity. That's character destruction. When we served her the updated papers, she didn't respond for 2 days. Then I got an email. Short. Cold. Like it was written by a version of her I hadn't met before. This is excessive. Let's be civil. Civil. She wanted to be civil. After she built a relationship on lies, treated me like wallpaper, and tried to quietly erase me from her life like I was a calendar event she forgot to delete. Now she wanted diplomacy? I didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, I gave my lawyer full permission to escalate. And here's where things got interesting. Lena and I weren't working together, not in a team sense. But we weren't exactly apart either. We shared information when needed. And that week, she shared something that changed the entire dynamic. Mike wasn't just cheating. He was also defrauding his employer. Turns out he was expensing the trips, the cabins, the hotel rooms, all labeled as client meetings or strategic retreats. Lena found the receipts buried in their joint business account. Sloppy, arrogant, and time-stamped perfectly alongside Lila's messages. She offered to hand it over if I needed it. I didn't even hesitate, because now it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about consequences. We filed a formal motion that week. Not just for the divorce, but for a disproportionate asset split, citing deception, emotional harm, and financial misconduct. And we attached the voice recording and Mike's fraudulent travel logs as exhibits. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it because people like Lila only understand boundaries when they hit them face first. No shouting. No chaos. Just paper, law, and a trail of her own making. She wanted freedom. Now she could have it, with a side of legal debt. The court date came faster than either of us expected. Lila showed up in muted colors and silence. Her lawyer did most of the talking, but I noticed something different in her face. She looked tired. Not the surface-level kind. The kind that sits deep in your bones when a story you tried to control breaks open in public. She didn't fight the terms. Not anymore. I think she realized there wasn't much left to save. Not money, not reputation, not even the narrative. The judge didn't take long to rule. Based on the evidence, the voice memos, the financial deception, the ruling came down clear. I walked away with more than I asked for, and far more than she ever wanted to give. But here's the part one didn't expect. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean, like I'd finally stepped out of a room that had been slowly filling with smoke. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. I took a week off. No calls, no emails. I drove up the coast. Alone, this time. Stayed in a quiet little cottage, read books I'd forgotten I owned, and finally deleted every message she ever sent me. Not out of spite, out of peace. Sometimes, letting go isn't a weakness. It's the first real strength you ever show. It's been 6 months. Lila moved out of the city. I heard she started over in another state. No one talks about the affair anymore. Mike lost his job and, from what Lena told me, his second marriage didn't last either. As for me, I'm good. Better than good. I'm rebuilding, not rushing into anything, not trying to prove anything. Just living lighter. I even picked up painting again. Nothing fancy, just little landscapes and night skies. It's weird what you remember about yourself when no one's lying to your face anymore. If you've ever had a moment like this, where one message changed everything, drop it in the comments. We read every one. Your stories matter. And don't forget, this is Reddit Confessions, where truth has a funny way of finding its way to the surface.